It's no secret that I thoroughly enjoy a Renaissance festival, but it's not always easy to share that experience with my friends and family. Ren fairs can be expensive, difficult to navigate with small kids, and not everyone wants to get up early on their Saturday to put on a full costume and run around the woods in over 80-degree temperatures. So if I can't bring my friends to the Ren fair, I guess I'll have to bring the Ren fair to them. It certainly won't be exactly the same immersive experience, but I can create something just as magical and memorable right here in my own backyard. And I will admit I have a bit of an advantage that this is my backyard. So my big three objectives with having a Ren fair party at home are to make it, 1, little to no cost for my guests. Now, we'll go over potential guest contributions later, but basically I want something that the people I've invited can just show up to with no expectation, like just come hang out with us. Number 2, I want it to be extremely family friendly, because traditional Ren fairs often are not. Now, if you know the history of how Ren fairs got started, you might be like, yeah, well, duh, of course they're not family friendly. And this can vary by region as well. Like the Pennsylvania Ren fair had a completely different feeling than the Maryland one does. And you know what? Adults need a place to let loose and have a little bit of fun. But as someone who is friends with people who have children, as someone who wants children someday myself, the atmosphere can definitely be a hindrance to taking young children, both in just the content of some of these shows or the performances, as well as the landscape and trying to navigate over hills if you have a stroller. And sometimes patrons wear some crazy stuff. Like I have seen some body parts that I did not need to see, and I'm honestly shocked that they were allowed through the gates. Now, before we move on, I just want to make it abundantly clear that I have absolutely no problem with people taking their children to the Renaissance Fair. I think that's a wonderful way to spend the day with your family. However, I am also sensitive to the reasons why a person might not want to take their child to the Renaissance Fair. And so that's all that I'm addressing here. I personally will probably take my future kids to the Ren Fair. I think that would be a really fun thing to do, but there are a lot of factors at play that you have to consider when young children are involved that an adult going without children doesn't have to think about. So I want to create an event that is extremely family friendly where my friends that have kids don't have to worry about that. This is absolutely for the kids and for the adults. It's for everybody. And lastly, I want this to be something not overstimulating. Again, as much as I enjoy the Ren Fair, it can be a lot, whether that's because of the temperature, just all the different sensations of smell and noise. It can be very overwhelming. It can be a really exhausting day. Even going into it mentally prepared to be overstimulated, by the end of the day, I'm drained. So this will still be a little bit crazy, as parties that involve lots of people and children often can be, but hopefully I want this to be something where the kids can kind of run around and do their own thing, and the adults can sit back and do their own thing. There will still be supervision happening, but I want this to be low stress for my guests. It doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be low stress for me, because when I go into hostess mode, I do get a little bit stressed, but I want my friends and family to be able to come and just enjoy the day. They're not going to be bombarded at all sides with different noises and smells and various stimuli. Essentially, I want to create a low-cost, low-stress Ren Fair experience for the people in my life that I think would enjoy something like that, but the typical experience, for whatever reason, has some barriers to entry. So let's briefly go over how I put together my guest list and go about sending out my invitations, and then let's hop into planning, because we got a lot to plan, got a lot to do. So after you've chosen your date and time for your party, as well as put together a list of who you'd like to invite, obviously you need to spread the message. You need to send out your invitations. There's a bunch of different ways to go about this. You can keep it super simple and just send a mass group text to everyone you want to invite saying, hey, Ren Fair party, my house, this date, this time, boom, done. Super easy. A little bit vague and mysterious as well, if that's your vibe, if that's what you're going for. On the other end of the spectrum, you can go super over the top with physical mailed invitations with a themed
card and ye old language. Even better if you deliver it on horseback. Forget the post office. Taking it by horseback is actually going to get there faster. So be extravagant with it if you want. I like to go somewhere in the middle. I like to use a free graphics editing app just on my phone to make a little picture that says date, time, any other specifics that people need to know. I decorated it to kind of mimic an illuminated manuscript page, but you can keep it really basic and simple. You don't have to do that. In addition to that, which you don't need to do, I also created a Google form just to keep track of not only who was or was not coming, but also if they were going to bring food, and also how many people from their family were attending. If the people you're inviting still use Facebook, you could always create a Facebook event page. Most of the people I hang out with aren't really on Facebook very much, so that isn't really an effective way for me to do it, which is unfortunate because they're very convenient. It's very convenient to just use Facebook events, but alas, I just texted everyone the invite, which honestly is equally straightforward and feels a little bit more personal, I think, to get a personal text sent directly to them. Don't overthink your invitations. When, where, anything else people need to know, just get it to them in whatever method is the easiest and most convenient for them and for you to keep track of.
Alright guys, so let's finally get around to talking about planning this shindig because it's a lot. It's gonna be a lot. Now I did do a trial run of this party last year on like a very small scale. I just invited a handful of families and oh boy did I learn a few things even just from that trial run. So we'll go over that as we go over the categories of planning. There are 3 main areas that I divide my planning into: food, decor, and vibes, and third, activities. Food and refreshments, that is pretty self-explanatory. We gotta eat. We gotta eat. We're gonna eat. Pretty much anytime I host an event, there will be some kind of food, even if it's just snacks. For smaller events, if it's just gonna be snacks, oftentimes I will provide everything. For an event like this though, where there's gonna be lots of people and it's gonna be around dinner time, I do like to set up as a potluck. Now, I've seen some comment sections on Subway Takes videos where people were really up in arms about whether or not a potluck is okay. Like if you're hosting, you should be buying all of the food. Girl, in this economy, basically the people in my sphere have no problem with a potluck. It is really the only way that we're gonna get this done and not absolutely destroy our wallets. Most people I know are happy to contribute. And if you don't say, please bring something, they will ask, can I bring something? So you know what? It's a win-win. People want to feel like they're contributing and helping, and I need help covering the food budget. So I am setting this up as a potluck. Now what I do as the host is I provide the main dish, and then I just ask my guests to bring a side dish or a dessert. And this is what I was referring to when I talked about potential guest contribution. They can spend a little money to bring food. They don't have to. I am absolutely not requiring bringing a side dish or a dessert. I still just want them to come hang out with us. In addition to obviously the food, we will need tables and chairs. We will also be using a tent if we are outside. We will need tablecloths. I do have a bunch from last year that I saved to reuse. We will need serving dishes, trays, decanters, serving utensils, paper plates, cups, napkins, utensils. When we get to the date of the party, I will also need to get a cooler with ice for beverages. And then I also want to get s'mores equipment. I need to put our fire pit back together because we've been rearranging stuff in the yard and I had to take it down and move it, but I will be setting that back up. And I just think it's such a fun way to end a party, especially when it's warm outside, to have s'mores. But that's the broad overview of what I do for food. Next is decor and vibes, all of the setting and environment stuff. This is the most fun for me. So I do want to replicate a few of the things that I did last year. I'm gonna tweak a few things, but thankfully that means I can reuse most of what I did. So for the table settings last year, I had a couple long tables set up under the tent with tablecloths over them. I found a few that were like a very bright gold yellow and a deep rich red. Those colors together felt very regal, medieval. And then I just did a collection of candlesticks with different colored candles, and I did a couple tea lights. So I will probably do the same thing with the table setting for where people are going to be eating. Something kind of simple that is very much in the center so that people have plenty of room to spread out and eat. And then hanging from the top of the tent, I made some ribbon garlands. If you saw my second installment of making stuff with scraps from last year, that video last year, I talked about how I made those ribbon garlands, and then I made a big centerpiece with some long ribbons as well, kind of like a ribbon chandelier. I think that looked really cool, so we're just gonna reuse that. I have a couple other tablecloths and things things to drape around, a bunch of candles. I have so many candles to just decorate both where people are going to be eating and also where the food is set up, and a couple of other display tables that I'll have around. So when we go dig through my supplies, I'll show you what I'm thinking of. Another big part of setting the mood is gonna be music. Last year, all I did was take one of the speakers that we have around the house and I just hooked it up to my laptop, and I set it up with a station on Pandora of just like vaguely medieval Renfaire music. Just something to play quietly in the background that kind of sets the mood. And then something that I didn't get around to doing last year that I really wanna make this year is a pillory for people to do photos. You know, where you stick your hands and your head in it. That, or potentially like a backdrop of like a stone wall. I don't know, I have to look at what I have and see what I can pull together, because that was one thing we didn't have last year that I would really love to have this year. So weather permitting, if we're able to be outside, that is going to be a big part of the experience, and the decor is just the great outdoors. If we're not able to be outside, it's going to be a little bit harder to create the right feeling, but I think with everything that I gathered last year, I think we'll get there. I think it'll come together. And then our last category for planning is activities. This is the big one. This is the one that I have to do probably the most planning, the one that I want to tweak the most. So last year, an issue I ran into is everybody was late. Everybody. So this year I'm pushing the time back an hour because people didn't show up until after 4 anyway. And then I also put on the invitation, games and events are going to start promptly at 4:30 so that there's a little bit of a buffer time to do welcomes and introductions, and then dinner will be promptly at 6. Last year, people arrived so late that it was really hard to do any of the games or activities that I had planned. I had to completely scramble and completely rearrange things. So if you have activities that really depend on being done at a certain time or that need to be done in a certain order, it might behoove you to let your guests know that. If it's just gonna be like a Renfaire party and it's just come hang out and it's vibes only, then you don't need to worry about it. But I want to make sure that kids have adequate time, kids and adults have adequate time to do the games and activities before dinner and also before sunset. The activities that I want to do are some form of jousting and sword fighting, a scavenger or a treasure hunt, and potentially a little merchant's tent. We'll see. I'm still toying with that idea. And I also want to do decorate your own goblet. I saw that on Pinterest the other day and I thought it was so cool. Something that people can make and then take home with them. Yeah, last year we didn't even have time to officially do the jousting or sword fighting. It was like, oh, everybody's late. Okay, just take the swords and run around, I guess. The scavenger hunt I also did last year. I had actually a scavenger hunt and a treasure hunt planned separately, and I worked really hard on the clues and all of the printouts for everything, but I just think it was too much. So I'm gonna combine them, I think. Additionally, I want to do some kind of voting or contest for best costume, because you know I love a costume, and I need to make, or just see what I have left over from last year, and also make prizes for the winners of these activities. So this is the one that I think is going to be the most labor intensive, but again, I do have stuff left over from last year. A couple other activities I considered that I might add next year are a self-directed ring toss board, a paint your own shield or coat of arms craft, and a make your own mask craft. One big change I am making from last year is making a rain contingency plan. Last year I set up a rain date. Basically, I rescheduled it, and the forecast was saying that it was gonna rain. So the day before I said, sorry guys, we gotta bump it to the next weekend. Lo and behold, it ended up not raining because this is Maryland and we can't have nice things. So this year, rather than doing a switcheroo with the dates, it is the date that it is, and I'm just going to have a backup plan to move everything inside if need be. As much as I really want to have this outside because using the trails and the woods is so fun and really just adds to the experience, switching the date was too crazy. All right, so let's go take a look at what I still have from last year and also figure out what I don't have and need to order. I stored everything that I used last year in our back storage room, but I haven't sorted through it since last May. Most of what I have is thrifted or pulled from stuff I already had around the apartment. A lot of the decor is handmade, and a few things were ordered online. I've also gradually been sourcing things from the thrift store throughout the year to expand the decor or activities from last year, like a few extra linens, a couple hobby horses, landmarks for the trail, and candles. So here in the guest room, I have everything laid out, spread out so that I can see it and see clearly what I have and what I don't have. So over here, I have stuff for table settings like candlesticks, glass jars and whatnot. These are things that I'm going to put on the trail for the scavenger hunt. A whole bunch of candlesticks, sparklers. Under here is my box of prizes to give away for different activities, different games that people win. This is mostly decor down here, so that should be good to go. I put my tablecloths in here, and then utensils, plates, napkins are here. I have so many utensils from last year. I don't need more utensils, but I do need more plates and napkins and cups. So that is one thing I need to order online. I have a couple hobby horses for the games, a bunch of swords. I'm gonna try to make these into, what are they called for jousting? I don't know why I'm blanking on the word. I will put it on screen. These are for the jousting. More decor and various linens and baskets down here. So I have 95+% of what I need. Mostly I just need to order a few more things for the meal, and I have one activity in addition to the jousting and sword fighting that I want to order supplies for. But otherwise, picking up things like these hobby horses throughout the year has definitely helped so that I'm not scrambling to collect everything last minute. Thankfully, there wasn't too much left for me to order. I decided to get a couple extra shields for the kids to sword fight with, as well as some supplies for making prizes, supplies for the design your own goblet activity, and extra cups, plates, and napkins. So it's Sunday and the party is in less than 6 days. It's on this upcoming Saturday. Time has really gotten away from me. It's been a really busy couple of months, so the party is very quickly approaching and I still have a lot to do. I really need to rework and put together stuff for my activities and my prizes. I put a lot of my stuff from last year in this box to just reuse this year because I didn't give away a lot of the prizes because nobody voted in the costume contest last year. We never got around to doing the official sword fighting or jousting or anything like that. A few kids did the scavenger hunt and treasure hunt, so I have a lot of stuff that I didn't use. One big thing that I'm going to do differently from last year is that I put together little packets last year so that every family, every person could take a little envelope, and it's a packet with a map of the trail, a scavenger hunt, a costume voting form, but there were not enough people to make this really worth it, so I'm not going to do that again this year. I don't remember what these were for. We're going to simplify a little bit and rework some things. The first and easiest thing to tackle was my costume contest setup. I only needed to print one more sheet of voting forms since none of them got used last year, and then I set about redecorating the form submission box. I don't know why I covered it in this yellow fabric. I think it's just so ugly. Once I got the fabric off, I painted the box and covered it in some stickers to disguise the damage to the cardboard. I also collected some colored pencils for people to write with. The Make Your Own Goblet activity also didn't need much in the way of setup, but I thought it would be easier for the kids if the sheets of gem stickers were already open and cut into smaller sheets. And I'm glad I opened these ahead of time because there was an absurd amount of packaging. I ended up saving the small cardboard pieces to reuse as labels later. I then turned my attention to the prizes for the activities. Last year, I bought these little trophies that I labeled for each of the winnable games, but I wanted to amp them up this year by attaching a golden dragon egg on top, stuffed with a few gems as well. I also had one remaining repurposed Altoid tin treasure box from last year's treasure hunt, so I refilled it to use as a prize for this year's scavenger hunt. And as mentioned previously, most of my DIY'd decor items were made last year, like the ribbon garlands, the bunting, and these banners made from thrifted table runners that a friend helped me add graphics to using their Cricut. As I sorted or completed these things, I organized them on this rolling cart for easier access on the day of the party. So I think I'm making good progress on everything I need to do for all of the activities and games. For the sword fighting activities, my plan is just to set up a really long 2x4 balanced on top of a few cement blocks. So that will set up day of, but it's going to be like a really simple low balance beam, like just a couple inches off the ground. And then I have a bunch of swords that I bought from Walmart. The way I'm going to operate the sword fighting is that whoever gets knocked off of the balance beam first loses. So they're both going to be struggling to stay on this board and trying to like knock each other off. But you know, it's like a few inches from the ground, so no one should get hurt. I do also need to figure out exactly what I'm going to do for my jousting. So I have a couple of hobby horses that I thrifted. Last year I thought it would be funny to do jousting with the kids like riding piggyback on an adult of their choice, you know, whatever adult could be roped into it. But I don't think people were really so keen on that. I think it would be funny though, but I think that's just me. So we're gonna just do hobby horses this year. I also have some giant pool noodles that I was gonna use as the javelins. Is that what they're called? I just need to figure out if I need to do something to make a better handle, like a better grip, because they're kind of floppy. And then for jousting, there's gonna be 2 activities. One is just gonna be a ring toss, and then we'll also do a traditional joust. Now by traditional, I gotta figure out how I'm going to determine a winner. I don't want these kids like full out attacking each other. Like no shots to the face, no shots to the groin. What I'm thinking of, and I've gotta play with this idea a little bit, what I'm thinking of doing is taking a plastic like solo cup, poking some holes in it and putting an elastic band through it so that they can wear it on their arm or on their shoulder. And the goal is to push the cup off of your opponent's shoulder. I don't know if that's a little bit too close to the face. I might have to test run it with my husband or something, because I initially thought maybe we'll do some kind of armband with a balloon attached to it and you have to try to pop the balloon, but then that means running at each other with sharp things, like something sharp enough to pop a balloon, and I could just foresee that going really poorly. I gotta play with it a little bit. So jousting is also almost done. And then the scavenger hunt, treasure hunt is going to be combined this year. Last year, I did a scavenger hunt with several different layers. There were a few items that I thought would be super easy to find, a few that would be a little bit more difficult. And then at the bottom, I thought, let's just put on there that if they find a bone, they immediately get like 20 points, they win, game over, because every now and then when I'm out in the woods, I do find bones, like deer bones or something that a vulture has dropped after they're done snacking. So it's not frequent, but it is possible. And my thought was the kids would do a bunch of the smaller things first and then maybe try to go find a bone. No, they completely ignored the smaller ticket items and focused all of their time, the little bit of time that they did have in the woods, they completely focused all of it on trying to find a bone. And I was like, guys, you're not gonna find one. Like, it's just kind of on there as a wild card. Like, maybe you might, but there's a 90% chance that you're not going to. And so that was a lesson for me in how people think very differently than I do. I was like, I would knock off the easy items first because you can get those done in 20 minutes and then go look for a bone. Nope, they only focused on the bone. So we're not doing that. I'm gonna make the scavenger hunt more about finding these little guys that I'm gonna have stationed around the trail. I've been collecting things throughout the year that I can make as little like trail markers. I bought some weatherproofing spray as well, just in case they end up getting left out there for a couple of days. So I need to weatherproof those, but then I also need to figure out what the clues are gonna be that go with each of the little landmarks, and then also what riddle are they trying to solve. So more than a scavenger hunt, it's kind of a treasure scavenger hunt, like go find the clues that are planted throughout the trail, put them together for the answer to solve a riddle, and the first person to solve it is going to get a prize. Sorry to all the kids who solve it afterwards, but that's life. Sometimes weatherproofing these guys has to wait until tomorrow because it's really cloudy and like kind of sprinkly today. The other thing for activities that I think I can do for now, I'm gonna set up some stuff to potentially have a merchant's table. So that's just gonna be like cute little trinkets and prizes, a bunch of stuff that I made last year. I'm gonna make a few more just to flesh it out, but that is gonna be like, oh, you can buy this thing for 5 acorns or like 2 shiny stones or something. That way the kids can just go find stuff in the forest and trade it for a trinket, because I'm obviously not gonna make my guests pay money for these things. That would be silly. But I think that could be fun, because that is part of the Renfaire experience, is doing a little bit of shopping or just window shopping. And that way it's really accessible for the kids. If they see something they want, it's like, yeah, cool, you can have this if you go find the adequate number of rocks. So I think I can square that away today as well. Anyway, that's where I'm at. All right, we're making good progress. I'm feeling better. I was stressing about how much I still had to do, but we're getting there.
Among the things I needed to update from last year was this schedule of events to display for my guests. A schedule we ended up not being able to keep. Rather than going through the trouble of coffee staining another piece of paper and handwriting all of the times, I just printed out the schedule and put it in a nice frame, which I then decorated with scraps of fake greenery. I also gathered up some ribbon scraps to leave out for my guests to take if they wanted. Next, on the matter of trail maps, I decided not to make any new ones as I still had 10 left over from last year. Instead, I bound them all with twine and displayed them in a couple of tankards so that anyone who wanted one could just take it. And I'm glad that's all I did because literally only one person took one, so I still have 9 left to reuse next year. The last thing I had time for that evening was making a few more leather cuff bracelets for the merchant's tent. These were the children's favorite item last year and are fairly easy to make. I just cut some of my faux leather scraps into even strips of varying lengths, and then added a single snap closure on the ends. The following day, I was able to get outside to coat my trail markers with a weatherproofing spray. Later in the week, I looked up Renaissance Faire or tabletop campaign riddles to find one that fit our party's theme, then assigned each trail marker a letter from the answer. I created hand-drawn symbols for the clue sheet, hoping they would be easy enough to identify on the trail that way. These I folded up individually to give out to anyone that wanted to participate. For the jousting setup, I measured out a long piece of twine to use as a divider between the players that would be hung up between 2 posts. I then cut up some scrap fabric into thin strips that I attached along the length of the twine. I also got my nephew to help me test my method of hitting a cup on your opponent's shoulder.
Ready, set, go. Try to hit this. Yay! What do you think?
He hit it.
Good.
I played around with a few different ideas for giving the lances a better handle, and I settled on using a couple pieces of cut branches inserted into the ends. To make them fit even more snugly into the pool noodle and provide a comfier grip, I wrapped the branches in long strips of scrap fabric. I used a piece of salvaged particle board from the trash for our pillory, first cutting it down to a smaller size, then cutting out 3 holes for the head and hands. We don't have a Sawzall, so I had to get creative with how to get these shapes cut out. I sanded the openings once they were punched through.
Set up the shot good? Yeah, that looks pretty good.
There we go. That looks a lot better in real life.
Oh, you punched it! Nice.
We got the punch on camera. You look so much better in real life.
I totally made the holes too big, but I'd rather have that issue than have them too small for our guests to use. I also added duct tape around the inside edges to prevent anyone from getting splinters, and my father-in-law helped by making a couple of legs for it to stand on from other wood that I had salvaged. For my merchant's tent, I gathered up all the faux leather cuffs that I made, some extra tiny plastic dragons, a stash of friendship bracelets I made some years ago, glass bead charms, glass vial pendants, some full of mermaid treasure and other full of real dried flowers, and some wrapped gemstone necklaces, which I superglued this year because last year they kept falling out. Everything except for the tiny dragons I made myself.
So the party is tomorrow. I think I've done about everything that I can do that isn't day of setting up. Unfortunately, the weather forecast has been really all over the place. It's been going back and forth, flip-flopping all week as to whether or not it would rain. So we should not have rain during the day, thankfully, but it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be like a high of 59, but cloudy, which means no warming up in the sun. Now, for me personally, that would be great for an actual Ren Fair because you're walking around outside and it tends to be kind of hot, and it's nice to be able to wear more layers and add pieces to your costume and not feel overheated. But I'm kind of worried about my guests being cold. I don't want to move the party inside though. It's not so cold that I feel we need to do that. We will have a bonfire going most of the time, so that will help. But what I'm gonna do, just so that no one freezes, instead of setting up the food outside, I think we're gonna bring it into the apartment. That way when people want to eat, they can come in, get their food, warm up for a minute. If they want to eat in here, they can, but they can also take it back outside if that's comfortable for them, just to give that option to people. So that means I do want to decorate the apartment just a little bit. It's already pretty cozy in our main living area, and I think it feels more like cottagey or taverny than if we were to do it upstairs. But otherwise, I'm gonna text everybody tomorrow and be like, hey, dress accordingly. We're not moving this whole shindig inside because it's not gonna rain. I need to get some kind of dinner going, and then I'm gonna decorate the apartment a little bit.
Against all hope, on the day of the party, the sun made occasional appearances and it did not end up as cold as I had expected. The first thing we set up was the tent, fold-out tables, and chairs, which my family very kindly helped me with. It's a lot of work to haul those things out, so having their help was essential, and it got it taken care of quickly so I could then shift focus to setting up all of the decor and the games. After setting up the dining area under the tent, I set up the activities table, which was full of things for my guests to participate in, and I set up my merchant stand with all of the trinkets I'd made. The jousting and sword fighting area was set up at the top of the yard at the flattest area I could find. This left a wide open space in the middle of the yard for the kids to run around with the swords after the official games ended. We also set up a temporary bonfire circle, and I ran down to the trail to set out the scavenger hunt items before finally returning inside to get dressed after 5 long hours of setting up and finalizing everything. So now that the party is over, I have so much cleaning up to do, so much sorting and packing away of all of the supplies, because I do want to do this again. I think yesterday went really well. People seemed to be having fun. The kids seemed to be having an absolute blast. It definitely helped that both my brother and my husband were there swinging the swords with the children. They just were obsessed. They loved it. They loved having 2 very tall grown men attack them with foam swords. I think for the most part, the changes I made from last year went over really well. There are still a few tweaks I want to make to how the games are run. I might swap out the ring toss activity or change it. I don't know. There's a few minor things. I'm not sure if I'll include them in this video, but I do want to do this again. Even though it's a lot of work to host, it's fun to create like a fun fantasy whimsical environment that other people can enjoy as well, and just to see the smiles on the kids' faces. So yeah, overall I think it went really well. Big shout out to my family for their help with it. I mean, just as far as like physical manpower to move the tent and the tables and the chairs. Whether you have friends with lots of kids or without, I think this could be fun for any age group. I mean, the adults were just as into it as the kids. I definitely catered my event more to the little kids, but I think you can definitely tweak events and things to cater to whatever age group you are inviting. Oh, and now I really must get back to cleaning up. There's so much to clean up. Oh, everything hurts. Everything hurts. I was on my feet all day yesterday for this. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching to the end. Oh, if you made it to the end of this video. Leave a tree emoji, because immediately after calling everyone in to serve dinner, a huge tree snapped in half and fell across the clearing down on the bottom loop of our trail. Kind of terrifying, and I'm so incredibly grateful that no one was on the trail at that point. So leave a tree emoji, because rip to that tree. That was wild timing. Anything can happen in the woods. Farewell. See you next time. These boots were not meant for this. Holy moly. Who would win? One adult woman or one tree? Here goes nothing. So graceful. Bink, bonk, bonk. Oh, there's a hummingbird.